I mean, you're NASA for crying out loud. You're the guys that think his shit up. I'm sure you got a team of men sitting around somewhere right now just thinking shit up and somebody backing them up. You telling me you don't have a backup plan? That these Boy Scouts right here, that is the world's hope?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was out with a group of friends at a dinner party, and they were talking about how nervous they were about things. Like, they were trying to compare their anxieties. And that feels like a very late millennial thing to do.
I was going to say that's your age bracket, right?
Yeah. And I made a joke of it because that's my defense mechanism, not because it's healthy to do. But we were talking about, like, will I ever find love, especially in a situation where, you can't, you can no longer marry or date somebody in another political realm or from a different political party. Like, it's too much argument. Or like, will I ever make enough money to start a family, because children are extraordinarily expensive right now. We're about to have an episode about that. Or can I afford housing? Or like, what about all the dumb people in politics, and how many of them are taking lobbyist money? And I made a joke that was in very poor taste. I called those basic bitch anxieties. And I told them, get on my level, and that level is
this is
looking at things.
That's why we're together. I always hold the mic and
yeah.
I'm the spokesman for this.
yeah. Todd's good at sympathizing with people. I'm good at making people feel upset that I've dismissed them. But I started talking about, you want to talk about stuff that will keep you awake. Let's go to old stuff, like, how about the heat death of the universe, or how can anyone sleep knowing that, like, in 10 to the 100th power of years, the universe won't exist. Like, it'll probably just wink out. And even if it doesn't wink out, the heat death just means that there's only so much hydrogen in the universe that eventually those stars will just not have the power to continue burning. And by the way, I found out that 10 to the 100th years is called a Google. It's spelled a little bit different, GOGOL. But yeah, I thought that was neat. But that's a serious anxiety. Like that's not just me. TV shows like what is that? Interstellar kind of touches on some of these things. But then there's more immediate. If you tell me, oh, that's too abstract, nobody can think that far ahead, then I'm like, well, what about the slow weakening of the Y chromosome, where the male chromosome is slowly losing genetic material over time? And that could take, under 5 million years before we are no longer able to reproduce as people, or faster if plastic softeners continue messing up fertility. Or, there's the fears about asteroids hitting. I turned this dumb joke, this sort of like me being a little bit callous and a little bit goofy. And I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, how about we just list these out for fun? Like, not for self-help. I know that's usually what we do. But I was thinking, how can anyone give a serious shit about which elderly person is currently running the country, or who won American Idol last season, when there are all these cosmic horrors we could be anxious about, of which we have about 20, and I figured we could present them in order of importance and magnitude.
That's Joe. I talk about something nice over there. Let's talk about cancer and car accidents. Right?
Oh, no. Those go under basic bitch anxieties. We're talking about cosmic horrors, things that could go wrong with, like, biological processes, and things that could happen with artificial intelligence, climates, pandemics. So we're talking about what are the biggest things possible. First off, are you one of those people who, if something takes too long to happen, like when somebody in a high school teacher, is talking about the dinosaurs were killed by a meteor, and they're like, the same thing could happen to us in a few million years. Are you one of those people who, like, rolls their eyes? You're like, come on, like, that amount of time, I won't even be alive.
I do, and my whole life has probably been. I'm more of a what am I doing Friday night kind of person,
Yeah.
Not a big goal or planner, so so I don't think I'm going to live that long, anyways. And who cares, kind of thing, which I know is the wrong attitude, especially towards, like, pollution and that kind of stuff. And I feel guilt for that. Like, yeah, who cares? If, if I'm not going to be around, I don't like that. I don't even like thinking like that. But
yeah. Well, I think that's the line I want to tread is I'm one of those people where if I'm in the right kind of mood, I can accidentally slip into, oh my God, I won't exist in, a couple, like decades, let alone 5 million years or whatever. How can I care about this? And then I think about it, I'm like, well, then again, everything I write or everything I look at or everything I watch, a lot of that has to do with long-term stuff, like sci-fi movies. I'm watching like Foundation by Asimov, or I'm watching stuff that is like Dune, and I'm already putting my mind in, what if a few million years from now we were out in space and humanity looks so strange, and then I reel back and I think, oh yeah, no, we may not exist by then. I mean, this is, I'm not the only one either. Like, there are major people in tech industries right now who are concerned about the future of humans to the point where they want to like get off this planet. Like Elon Musk has said multiple occasions he wants to get off Earth quickly and establish colonies. And it's a weird thing to think about. Like, how long can we hold on to humanity? But I want to present this also in a humorous light, because I don't want people to look at this list and be like, why would you do this to me? Why would you?
Some of it's exciting too, isn't it? Because you're exploring, you're doing new things, right? The moving away.
Yeah, that's kind of I think that's in a weak way, that's what I'm getting at, is I want this list to be something interesting and strange that you can talk about at a dinner party to get yourself kicked out, just like me. So so the first one I mentioned, casually off the cuff, the heat death of the universe. Have you ever heard of this phenomenon?
I've not.
Most people think of the universe collapsing. That is something that, like, I've heard people talk about. Very on the rarer spectrum, the way I know somebody has passed, a basic physics class or has watched too many Star Talk episodes like me. They talk about when they call it the thermodynamic equilibrium, which basically just means everything takes something in order to continue burning. And just like a campfire, it'll eventually run out of fuel. It takes billions of years. And at some point, stars just across the universe everywhere will start sort of burning out like campfires that just don't have enough wood. And that wood is hydrogen. And there's the reason why that takes first place. Like, that's the biggest one I could think of. Because it is something that is inevitable and also such a far distant piece of time that, like, we can get away with that. Like, we can get away from it. We can mentally hide from it. At least I can.
What happens to humans? Do we just suffocate?
No, just everything gets too cold. Like okay. If there's if you think of stars as kind of like islands we would hop to, if you fast forward to, was it hundreds of billions, like 10 to the 100th power in years, that's how many billions and billions and billions of years. By then we would be very, very spacefaring if we're still alive, hopefully, and we would just go star to star until they run out of heat as well, and then we're like, well, there's nowhere else to go, and there's nowhere warm enough for us to exist, and then everything winks out, which is very, very grim to think about. But also, when you think about, like, the escape hatch mentally for me for that one is, well, we might be able to, like, traverse dimensions by then. Like, who knows what we'll be able to do in that amount of time.
Well, let me ask you this, because I watched this show about Neanderthals, and then I took some time and I sat down after I watched it and tried to get my head around 400,000 years ago they existed on this planet.
Yeah.
And I just have a hard, after you get past the Jesus, the 2000, how do you go 400,000 back or a million forward?
When you talk about that much time, we've already changed so much as a species in the amount of time we've been here. We've only been here for approximately 300,000 years. So, like, the amounts of time we're going to be talking about exceeds how long we've been around, and that's how, like, the type of humans that we would perceive as human. Did that answer the question, or did that also go astray?
No, it does. It does actually help. It made it even bigger.
Yeah. This is like this. I'm going to consider this one almost a basic bitch anxiety. because everybody in school in a general science class usually learns about what happens with our sun. Our sun will eventually start getting into its later life cycle and expand into a red giant. And when it turns into a red giant and balloons outward, it'll encompass the Earth. Like we become part of the sun, or it will just get too hot and it will burn us out. And that will take about 5 billion years.
But realistic. That's realistic. Yeah, that I remember that from school.
We have 5 billion years to go before that happens. What happens if we take our total length of existence and divide that into 5 billion? Because we want to know, like, how many, if our current species lifespan so far has been 300,000 years, how many more of our species lifespans would that take to get to the sun expanding into a red giant? And the answer is 16,666. So take how long humans have ever existed, multiply that by 17,000 roughly, and then we get to the sun expanding.
We've got some time.
Again, these are the ones where, like, if you want a mental escape hatch from them, if you don't want to dwell on like how anxiety inducing that is, having, all of humanity collapse all at once because of these things, that's the escape hatch. Is just tell yourself, it's such a distant length of time, I don't have to think about this.
It's hard to be too anxious. Okay, let's do the other one, the long-term one.
Here's another long-term one that I want to include on this. So the Milky Way galaxy and the Andromeda galaxy have like slowly been sliding toward each other. And right now, in sci-fi movies, there's like a thing where like we try to get over to the Andromeda galaxy. In fact, there's a show called Andromeda, because it's our nearest sister galaxy. And wouldn't it be nice to go visit them and be like, hey, you guys have a lot of planets too. But we are getting closer. If you wait long enough, about 4 billion years, we might collide with them. And I don't know what a galactic collision looks like. I don't know if that turns into a black hole when like that much mass comes together, or if it's like planets exploding, like it's like a J.J. Abrams movie, like just planets blowing up as they hit each other.
Could be bumper cars. They just kind of bumping into each other, but everything's okay.
Right. If you want to get more immediate, if you want to get more toward like, here's stuff that could affect us right now, you don't have to wait around 5 billion years or, anything to the nth power. It could just happen tomorrow if we really were unlucky. Have you ever heard of a gamma ray burst?
No, I've not.
This is the most Star Trek thing I could think of. Like on my list of like, it's such an interesting fear and it's such an interesting anxiety to have. I actually wrote a short story about this, and it's the one that got me in the top 10 placing for Rise of the Future. So like, I have such a fascination with this. Like all of the images you can look up online about it, and please look it up. They look like a sci-fi cover. Or it looks like something happening in, a Star Trek or Star Wars episode. What happens is neutron stars begin collapsing. And while they're collapsing, and while all of this, super dense, super hot material is like coming together, sometimes these neutron stars have to let some energy back out again. It's like a burp or a, like a release of gas. And this happens as a giant galactic death beam. There is no better word for that. All of the pictures look horrifying. They all look like that. The name gamma ray burst makes it sound like something that would happen at a hospital while you're getting scanned.
I was gonna say, it looks beautiful to me, as long as it's not heading your way,
Yeah. And all the pictures, it looks like a star or like black, almost like a black hole with a spiral of light around it, and it's just shooting a beam of light out from that middle eye. So it does look pretty in the pictures. But what this could do is imagine just like a death ray in space or a gunshot in space. It just goes in a relatively straight line outward for effectively forever. Like it just shoots out. And it's so powerful that it almost doesn't have a limited distance for human conception.
I was going to say,
and if
more power than we could even comprehend.
And it absolutely vaporizes everything in front of it. I think I should have led with that part. While it shoots out, it would, even if it like barely nicked the Earth or came close, it would still absolutely strip away our atmosphere. Like it would take out our magnetic bubble that we kind of float in, and it would sterilize the Earth's surface basically. It is the most powerful explosion in the universe. It's the biggest thing we can observe as far as emitting out, forms of energy and gamma rays. And like I said, if you look up pictures of it, that will probably become your phone's background for the next month. They are so cool. And those are, although it takes a very long time for them to happen out in space. Like if you're looking at a star, we're talking billions of years. But there are so many stars out there, and there are so many galaxies out there.
All it takes is one.
Yeah, and we can't possibly watch them all. Like was it 2% of the observable sky that we have our eyes on at any given time? Like a gamma ray burst could just come out of nowhere.
But what could we do to change it? We couldn't adjust, right? Move to the other side of the planet. We can move to, wherever we didn't think it was going to hit or away from it, but.
I can say this now without sounding like a complete egotistical maniac. My small award-winning short story. I mean, the award is small and the story is short. Those things. I wrote about a theory that we could make gamma absorbing metals and like kind of make clouds out of those.
Okay.
And so like that's
it's worth a try,
That's literally pulling it out the butt kind of fiction. Like it would destroy the Earth in the process of us doing that, by the way. So like it's not a practical solution, but yeah, there are things that scientists have theorized that we could do against it, but only if we had like another 100 years to develop that technology. Now there's another thing that sounded so incredibly sci-fi. I mean, like so incredibly Star Trek. I almost didn't want to put it on this list. There's something called dark energy acceleration. And it's the theory that if dark energy continues to accelerate the expansion of the universe, it could lead to something called the Big Rip. Now, what we know of is we have the Big Bang. That's when like the universe started expanding, right? It came from nothing. It was just like a hot, dense material, and then it suddenly exploded outward like a balloon. And then we have, the universe the universe as we know it, and all the galaxies and all the stars and everything like that. If it continues to go out too quickly, like if it continues to expand too fast, instead of let's say a universe collapsing, or the universe winking out, or just expanding so much that like we can't get to each other, like we can't travel to the other galaxies because they're too far away. Instead, what could potentially happen is a big rip, which means that like galaxies, stars, and even atoms start tearing apart. Like it just undoes the fabric of the universe. Is pretty much the only thing the only simple wording I have to describe that.
All our cells ripped apart.
Yeah. Think of it as like if you gain too much weight too fast, we get stretch marks. I think I want to coin that new term. I want it to be these are galactic stretch marks where a rip could happen.
Okay, I can visualize that. Yeah.
And if it happened and too much dark energy accelerated too fast in one place, it could lead to one of these stretch marks, and that could tear apart the atoms of the universe in that space. But just a couple of really quick other galactic ones I wanted to get through. What if we accidentally create a black hole? That was something that we were concerned about when the Hadron Collider was installed. Do you remember that when the news was talking about like, what if we start up this collider to study particle physics and we accidentally make a black hole?
No.
So the Large Hadron Collider, it was built on the Franco-Swiss border by Geneva, Switzerland. And it's just this big circular track underground where they basically throw particles at each other at super, super, super high speeds. Now, I heard it from a Radiolab podcast, so like I will trust the scientists that they were interviewing were telling the truth on this one. But apparently they had an emergency computer where if somebody from the future had to tell them to stop making this thing because they're going to rip a hole in time and space, they could talk to them on this computer. And this sounds so goofy and Star Trek-y, but I was like, somebody made it for real. Somebody wanted to know just in case, and in case we had the ability to talk to a computer through time. And the way this computer worked is its password would reset the next day. So like you can't log into it unless you know the password tomorrow. So you would literally have to be a time traveler to log into the computer on the day that you want to use it. You'd have to go forward a day, get the password, come back, in time a day, and then log in, and then it would let you onto the computer. And they checked it. The people who had the master password would go on and check it and make sure that, like, okay, future us have not found a way to send signals back in time to tell us to not do this.
It'd be nice to have heads up warnings about stuff, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
that would seem like more helpful than anything else, right?
Right. I like we're gonna coin that as being the lake house method of warning. You can send letters back in time, like that'd be great. I don't know why you'd use it for romance. Why wouldn't you use it for like, hey, the economy's gonna collapse this year?
Isn't that the premise for all the time travel movies, that you can't change anything or else it's doom?
Most movies operate off the logic of they operate off Marty McFly Back to the Future logic, where if you change something in the past, or it affects the now. There are a couple others that I just want to like go over real quickly. Loss of quantum coherence. In school, everybody learns that like a desk is just a bunch of atoms glued together. Like electrons are attracting things, and you have enough of these little particles, and like they just form a desk that you can put your drink on. What if just that atomic glue stopped working, and at a macroscopic level, things just kind of fell apart.
Applesauce, right?
Yeah, that's some Ant-Man Quantumanium shit that I actually can't wrap my mind around too easily. But it is one of those things where it's like, well, this would end everything all at once, hypothetically. Another hypothetical is cosmic particle decay. Over unimaginable timelines, even stable particles like electrons might decay, which would leave nothing in the universe except radiation. Like everything around us, every physical object that is bound together would just basically become like background radiation interference. So that's one where it's like, that's so abstract my brain can't think of it. That's like everything turns into a Jackson Pollock painting all at once. And I'm like, well, that's very trippy to think about, but not very, like, it's not even solid enough for me to like wrap my mind around most of the time. So we're going to transition to like I wanted to sort of like throw those out there real quick, just because I'm like, those are so abstract that I can't be afraid of them. So I don't know if you can like think about everything melting into atomic radiation, but that's a far flung possibility. The heat death of the universe and the sun going out, those are inevitable, but very, very far away. These other things are less like far less likely to happen, but could happen. So let's get into some of the anxiety stuff that actually causes me anxiety. Like when I talk about the economy or finding a house or something like that, those are basic bitch anxieties. These are the monocle and top hats of anxieties. These are the caviar of anxiety, if you will.
I think as you kept stacking these on, but one by themselves, I didn't think was possible. But with this many different ones, I started to think, well, there's a chance that one of these is going to happen, and maybe happen soon, right? But please.
Yeah. So there was a book by Orson Scott Card. One of his, I think his like Xenosaga books. Just the idea was, every humanity lived on multiple planets, and one planet they had introduced a bunch of like species that we liked into the ecosystem. So there's one type of grass, one type of tree, one type of lizard, one type of goldfish, like everything that filled an ecological niche. It only had one type of thing there. And then I realized that in the movie Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey, they only have corn. Like all crops have like failed to reproduce. Everything has died from blight except for corn. So everyone on Earth just grows corn and nothing else. That is, I didn't realize it, one of the basic sort of options on the table of our buffet of extinctions is biodiversity loss. We currently are living through what they're calling an extinction age, where the climate is changing rapidly enough and our temperatures are changing rapidly enough. And we've had episodes where we talk about like, well, some different political parties around the world, some don't believe in climate change. Now the numbers look like about 90% of everyone believes that the climate is changing. It's just they disagree on what's causing it. So this is a thing that we know, and we know it's happening. We have a lot of studies to show that it is happening.
The corn thing kind of made me think of like how they manufacture seeds and how they crossbreed things.
Yeah. And that's part of what we're doing on purpose to get around the loss of biodiversity. Usually you have like, everybody's like, well, what have we lost? We still have frogs. Like we still have all these species running around. I don't feel like I've lost anything. And the truth is like there are, thousands of types of insects and thousands of types of like subspecies in different parts of like, the South America. And there's all these, especially in the ocean, you talk about like biodiversity loss in the ocean. You have tons of types of fish dying off. One of the things that China has experienced is they have had parts of their river mouths stop producing the fish that they have known throughout their entire lives. Like they will go out to fish and they're not pulling in the fish that their grandfathers ate. They're pulling in jellyfish. Apparently something about the way like some of their rivers are, carrying human waste. And the combination of that plus the warmer waters, because everything's gotten a little bit warmer, means that they just have these massive jellyfish blooms that just will not quit. So like that's an example of like a small ecological area where they have just suddenly had a complete lack of biodiversity. Like they don't have all these different varieties of schools of fish anymore. They just have jellyfish. So that's something that could happen everywhere. That is not it's not a threat of our, of us dying. That is more of a threat of we're going to see massive change. Like we will see things get simpler in a way that we're not really prepared for. And that hits home. Like that's one where I think about it. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, no, there could be, there may be those moments on like watching nature channels when my children are born where like they don't get to see, David Attenborough talk about this rainbow frog or like this strange cricket in the Amazon, or they, all these cool things. Like there's such a huge diversity. They're just going to be like, there's an elephant and that is a lion and that's it. Like that's just these couple. Biodiversity loss I put above the weakening of the Y chromosome. And I used that one in our intro to say that, over the span of a species' lifetime, the Y chromosome generally loses genetic material. And that's not just humans. That's I think most mammals. And if we reproduce long enough over the course of millions of years, we will just simply be like no longer be able to produce male heirs. Like just men won't be born anymore. And I thought that was a novel idea. Like I was like, oh, like that, that there's no way I've seen anything in fiction or sci-fi about that. That was a goddamn episode of Quantum Leap, I found out.
Shouldn't that be a book, though? I mean, is that the More Women for Me kind of thing? This is like our dream, right?
Okay, hold on. I hate that you went to the Quantum Leap episode. You haven't even seen it, and you're talking about it. That's what happens. Is like in that episode, they like go to like a fertility, like it's like a sperm bank or something, and all of the guys in the group of Quantum Leapers, the men are like forced to like donate round the clock or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's fool's gold. I think it's probably not as great as it sounds.
No,
it's like having multiple wives. It's not that great. Okay, it's a trap.
Right. And the thing about Matt Ridley and the Red Queen's race, the case study of here's a family that only produced female heirs. That's exactly what this is about. The idea that like the Y chromosome gets weakened in that family in particular, but what if it happened everywhere all at once, where we weren't able to produce males anymore?
Well, and then right now, testosterone on male is as lowest as it's ever been, and plastics. There's all these things that in our diets and in how we're not as testosterone full as we used to be, which means less babies.
Right. So I've read about that, the reduction in testosterone and the weakening of male reproduction. Plastic softeners are supposedly the part of plastics that are weakening the male chromosome, or just weakening us in general. And those are called phthalates. Now, if you want to spell phthalate, to look it up, it's PHTHALATE.
That'd be a good spelling bee question, right?
Right. Somebody who invented that word just wanted to throw in a bunch of consonants together. But plastic softeners are extremely important. They're what we use to make flexible plastics, and they have been tested and found to interfere with hormones. So, like, you have enough of these plastic softeners in your system, you can't produce certain hormones, or you can't produce them as well in your body. It can cause malformations in baby boys. Like you can have mutations in boys specifically. It reduces fertility. It messes with it gives you developmental disorders and like is a possible cancer risk. When people attack vaccines, but they totally ignore plastic softeners, it kind of makes me shake my head. Like when I'm watching the news, it's one of those snooty moments again where I'm like, yeah, be anxious about something that barely affects us, while meanwhile plastic softeners are totally wrecking up our bodies. I had a very smart friend recently who is in like cybersecurity and data, and I started talking about this, and I thought they were going to be like, you're wearing a tinfoil hat again. And they're like, no, you don't get it. They're like, I worked for a company that was trying to hide their phthalates and plastic softeners footprint. And they were like, we're going to look back at this like lead, the boomer generation had to deal with leaded gasoline and how that affected their brains, and like how it's like led to long-term poisonous effects and has done serious damage and like, made a whole generation of people slightly more aggressive and slightly more anxious, and like has messed with their biochemistry. We're going to look back at the plastic generation, our generation, and be like, what the hell were we thinking? Like phthalates, like these forever chemicals. We're going to look back at this and be like, that's our lead. That is our lead moment.
That's interesting. Yeah.
This one isn't so much of a far-flung thing now that we're kind of watching it happen in real time. There's a theory that we've never had one technically except for the Black Plague, but global economic collapse is something that could potentially happen. And the way that would kind of look is, we have a recession, and it sometimes other countries will have a mirror recession. This kind of started happening during COVID. Everyone kind of went into lockdown, and the countries that like slowed down commerce the most suffered the most. But it is possible to have some of the largest countries enter into sort of these synced up recessions. Like
That
if
makes sense. Like it's usually a race, right? One might go into a depression or recession, but then another two countries come on strong, right?
yeah,
But if they were to all join, which makes sense with with them all being connected, with trade and stock markets and.
if you want to think of like, oh, well, how bad could that be? Just imagine the Great Depression, but everywhere all at once. Because during the Great Depression, we were like, we could at least get deals to ship wheat and things like that. But if there's no one to send you, and then there's like the theory that England could have sent food during the potato famine, but they chose not to, or like not to a degree that would actually help. There's all these theories surrounding other countries that have had depressions and recessions, and they usually get kind of semi bailed out by another country.
Yeah, there's
through a trade deal.
foreign aid of some part, right?
Right. But what if every country had this all at once? Then it would just be like a depression or recession that like would lead to social and civil unrest.
Yeah.
Like that level of poverty and unemployment everywhere all at once would just be like, well, it would set us back. It would basically rewind us to feudalism for a while. Now, this next one is going to piggyback on that slightly. Do you remember when Elon Musk was sending out tweets about his fears about artificial intelligence?
I just remember the overall scare.
One of them was Stephen Hawking, I think.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah. Like he used to talk about how machines could take charge, and he put that as a fear thing. Like he didn't put that under the category of like, wouldn't it be neat if machines took care of us? He put that under the category of that could spell the end of the human race, I think was the quote he had. and Elon Musk basically also said that it posed a fundamental threat to, he called it civilization's destruction is possible. Now, people like me who like I write fantasy and sci-fi. Like I study a lot for this podcast and I study a lot for school, but like how could that happen? How could an AI be smart enough to like end us all at once? We'll just not give it guns. Like that's the answer is what if we don't, it's not like Terminator where we have an AI controlling our nuclear bombs. Just don't give it weapons. We'll be fine. The fear isn't that a artificial intelligence will, grow itself a robot skeleton, pick up a gun and shoot us. The real fear, honestly, is that it could infiltrate the utility systems we have. Like what if an artificial intelligence just decided to shut off all of our electricity all at once and infect it with a computer virus that like just made it to where we couldn't power things back on. Like what if we just didn't have water, basically? And that would not be that hard to do. The reason why this is a fear is you can go onto ChatGPT right now and you can tell it, I want the code for a pizza website. And that's one of the examples they used is you can go on and you can have it write the web page code to make a web page in text. So like all the text that I can't code. So it just looks like another language to me, but you can just copy all that, put it into a website, and it will suddenly appear that you've written and made a website that's functional and has colors and has banners, and you can click on it. You can order a pizza, even though the shop doesn't exist. So we're not that far from it being able to write that kind of code and be like, what if I just said no to, you guys having power in this part of Texas?
I can't help but think about the Y2K, because there was, it was, perceived, and people who knew were saying and computers had to be updated, but there could be just a shutdown where it just doesn't work anymore.
Right. Or a scarier version of that isn't that it attacks utilities. What if it decided to meddle with economy and not announce itself? We're also, we talk about global economic collapse. What if an AI out there decided, or not even decided, like what if somebody asked it to, hey, start trading. Here's $1 billion. Go onto the global markets and trade things in the exact order it would take to collapse the economy. And it just goes on and it buys and sells things in the exact order it takes to do that. So
I could just see some kind of like really intelligent school shooting college student who would like to do the most damage, and figures out how to prompt this. Does it make sense?
Right.
And get the engine going that way. with the
What if
intention
we
of
have
just
a
as much harm as they can, you know.
right? What if instead of a 3D printed gun, Luigi Mangione had access to an AI that could collapse companies? Like,
Right?
um,
That seems
yeah.
realistic.
And for a good example of this again is people are currently using AI for all kinds of fraud already. Like at this moment, they're using AI to simulate the voices of your grandmother and calling people and being like, help, my doctor is charging me too much money in your grandma's voice, and like saying, I need you to send me $1,000.
Okay. Yeah. Impersonating. Yeah.
Impersonating, yeah. People are using AI right now to hack systems. There have been a couple of recent, very, very high-profile hacks. United Healthcare was one of them, where like hackers got into their system and stole the personal data of like everybody. And a lot of these foreign hacks are using AI to assist them. They're having AI basically be like, okay, I need you AI to guess this password, 10,000 times, and give me the right password once you get to it. So we're already using AI to as bad actors. We're already using it to disrupt systems. So how far away are we from a general AI saying, I got this? Like, you don't need to tell me to do anything. I will just do this on my own. On your scale of personal anxieties and personal worry, how concerned are you with climate change on any given day?
The last few years, because the weather has just been so weird, and it affects. I'm in the construction business. It affects my business directly. It's weird to me. It's something that I can see, and as you get older, you get more sensitive to weather, but it's hot when it shouldn't be, and it's cold when it shouldn't be. And it's there's something's changing.
Yeah.
And it's something I think about every day. So I would say it's high.
Yeah.
I'm not losing sleep over it, but it's unsettling at times. Even when it's just too nice for too long, it's weird,
Yeah. There was I speaking of construction, my wife's family works in construction in a way where they have to interface with a lot of different construction businesses. The strangest call I have ever accidentally sat in on. They were having a meeting, and one of the like the bigwigs of this huge construction company, who is like as red state as you get. We are talking like he is the head of a Texas construction company. Like he is
he's anti-environmental, is to say that.
Yeah. And in a, I won't make a joke, whistling Pete Texas accent, but he said in the thickest accent I've ever heard, he's like, I don't care if you believe in it or not, it's changing the way we do business, so you've got to believe in that at least. And then he started talking about how like they couldn't operate or work anymore in certain areas of the state because it would be too hot in certain parts of the year. He's like, this is now a no-go zone. These months.
True pragmatist, though, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. The last one you think would be saying that.
Yeah. And by the way, we are down in our list of anxieties to where these are the things that like we can either expect or they've already have happened on small, small degrees and small amounts. So these are the more realistic ones. We started with, yes, a gamma ray burst could wipe us all out, if we were that unlucky in the cosmos. We're now down to the stuff where it's like, yeah, now we taught climate change, unfortunately. And like I said, according to the best government polls we have right now, a majority of Republicans believe in this. They just don't believe that we are necessarily the source of it. So everybody agrees things are changing, just not exactly why. Unless you are being paid by the oil lobby, then you know why. It's because farts. Like it's because of reasons that have nothing to do with the burning of fossil fuels. But that's only if you're getting a big check from the oil lobby, which I would like to. That might change my politics.
Oil rights.
Yep. So I think on this list, if we're going down the list so far, the one that I actually that I actually spend time worrying about is probably climate change, and not in a way a lot of people would probably think. I'm not really concerned about the Earth heats up 3% or 3 degrees total. We lose the ability to farm in large parts of the globe. We lose the ability to carry as many people as we can right now. What that leads to is just a climate that is extraordinarily unpredictable, and you just can't live in certain areas. And there is a map of where a projected map of where is going to be habitable soon. And when I say soon, I mean like decades. I don't mean hundreds of years. And the funny thing is, those areas are those are where Silicon Valley tech bros have bought the most land. So if you compare the map of where is going to be safe, or what is quote unquote climate safe areas, and where tech bros are moving, they are physically moving their houses to these safe areas, and they are physically moving their businesses to unsafe areas because it's very cheap right now. There's a reason why hotter Texas cities have grown in population most recently, and it's because they are cheaper, and people are like,
that's if you want to know the future. You want to know the future, you follow the money, right?
That's exactly what I'm saying. You follow the people with the most money and like a lot of intelligence gatherers to tell them, to feed them information. And they're like, oh, I need to move up to, Michigan. Okay, I'll do that.
And not to be too conspiracy, but they have contacts in government too, right? So they have some insider information.
Absolutely.
As we well know.
I like that the one thing that both Democrats and Republicans can agree on is that working in Congress and working in the Senate right now, both have pitched the idea of we count it as insider trading when politicians get these reports and then use that to buy stock market stuff and use that to buy land in areas that are like climate safe. So yeah, that's absolutely true. And again, if you ever have doubts about if something is real or not, follow the money. Like that's a real simple one. Okay, so going down our list, I don't want to dwell on these because they are actually fairly realistic and they do happen. Pandemics, not just highly infectious diseases, and not just COVID-19 either. But we could have real nasty viruses come through and act the same way COVID did, but be more deadly. We are not here to quibble about how many people died of COVID. We're just using this as sort of a thing that we can point at and say, hey, that was a disease that was actually relatively not that harmful to all of us. It wasn't the Black Plague. It didn't kill half of humans. It wasn't 50% or 30%. It was a single digits percent for most places. And that was devastating. It put us all indoors and wrecked up our economy pretty badly. It would be pretty much the same process for, let's say, another bubonic plague, or let's say another airborne virus.
And I think that's realistic. I mean, if you think about the real plague, it killed populations like half a population in some areas. It was in the 1300s or 14, I forget, it was a long time ago, but it was 25 to 50 million people or so. I mean, so think about that when the world population was a lot less, and it's horrible, and you would think if something was just a deadlier disease got spread, it could happen, right? Just a couple ticks up from COVID.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you just take COVID or you take any airborne flu or something and just ratchet up the lethality by honestly just a fraction of a percent or 8%, you get something much, much worse and much bigger. And that is something we still haven't figured out. Like most countries have tried to implement plans for what happens when the next pandemic happens. But we haven't fixed it, and we certainly haven't learned our lesson. Like those same hospitals that were like, we suddenly realized hospitals were unequipped to have that many ventilators or have that many people on life support all at once or to have that many people they need to treat. We responded very, very quickly to making a vaccine, but it's because we, basically gave the keys to the kingdom to all these pharmaceutical companies. So it came at such a huge price to us as a people that we're like, okay, I guess we have to be in debt to these companies forever. So it's like we paid a massive price. We found out that our system couldn't handle it, and we didn't really keep those adjustments. We didn't keep those fixes. So it doesn't matter what your politics are. That's something that will eventually happen again. We will eventually have a cold or flu that can travel the world. And it just depends on the severity of when it happens. And that, yeah.
Do you kind of think too, there could be a kind of similar to your economic thing of all these countries having a depression at the same time? Could that be too, where it comes at, it's measles here and chickenpox here, and it just, and then some new kind of thing. This is a combination.
Oh yeah, that could happen. There have been times in history where like, a country will suffer from a type of disease. Meanwhile, their country next door is suffering from an economic slump, and the two combined means that like they can't help each other. Yeah. I'm just going to touch on these slightly and briefly because they're so well known. Asteroid impact, the idea that an asteroid could come out of nowhere and hit Earth and cause widespread destruction. There have been global groups of scientists that have come together to try to track or like try to tally up what the chances of that happening are. And also like what we could do to fight against it. And I think we all know the best solution we have for an asteroid impact is send Bruce Willis up into space with a team of plucky oil rig drillers, and they can blow it up.
I was thinking Independence Day with Will Smith. I think it's that one I'm not afraid of. That one I think it's just like, that one I think of just being hit struck by lightning. It's just one of those things,
Yeah. But that one is to put that fear to bed quickly. Like the reason I'm not anxious about that very much is because it happens all the time. We get hit by asteroids nonstop. Like we have a ring, like there's an asteroid belt in our solar system called the Kuiper belt. And we get hit by asteroids from it all the time. We live in a cosmic shooting gallery. Like we are one of the paper targets in a shooting range, and we just hang out and wave back at the asteroids from time to time. About once every 10 million years, we get hit with an asteroid that is big enough to wipe out life. And it's it's pretty regular. Like we talk about the dinosaurs, but like we get hit with smaller versions of that pretty frequently. Like there was the Tunguska event, which is like 1908. There was in Siberia, people heard an explosion, like, and I don't mean like a pop or a bang. It was like a nuclear bomb had gone off.
So, yeah.
And it leveled 80 million trees. Like it just destroyed a forest.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And so that was like
15 megatons of TNT.
Yeah. So that was 100 years ago. And that was
1,000
that
times
was an asteroid.
1,000 times more powerful than an atomic bomb dropped in Hiroshima.
Right.
1,000.
And yeah, that was a pretty regular, like Earth has these relics of all these asteroids. Like asteroids and comets are so common. When people are like they buy a wedding ring with like asteroid metals, or like I've seen people online who like buy swords like that have like parts of like an asteroid in it. That's how often we get hit. We like look at the moon. The reason for all those craters is that kind of stuff. So yeah, we could have a mass extinction event caused by an asteroid. That's so old news that they make they make kids movies about it. Like the Ice Age is basically about that. Okay, so moving on with our list of anxieties. I've only got a couple more for us, and these are some on the weirdness scale. These rank pretty highly. Have you ever heard of a toxin called botulinum H?
Botulinum H, no.
If you're a weirdo like me and you want to get on watch lists, you go to the CDC's website and you type in what are the most lethal toxins known to man, and that's how I found botulinum H.
Who are you trying to kill?
I just wanted to know, for my own sake, I wanted to know what's the most, like, what is the strongest virus or poison we've ever encountered as a humankind.
You want to know what your in-laws are giving you for breakfast, right?
Yep. I want to know. Well, there's, and by the way, when I say, a toxin or something like that, I don't mean like I'm going to turn into like, I'm not a Batman villain. I'm not going to be the Joker and try to poison a water supply with this stuff. In fact, it is so hard to get your hands on it that like it's unreasonable to expect anyone who would ever be able to backwards invent this. Unless you're an AI, ask your local chat GPT to invent a botulinum H for you, and I'm sure it'll give you the answer. But what botulinum H is it was an accident in history where basically a type of there are botulisms. There are types of bacteria that are dangerous but not lethal. They'll give you a stomach bug. They'll sometimes give you tunnel vision. They'll maybe mess with your nervous system. Botulinum H was an advanced bacteria that came from what is the suspected culprit is bad pork. And it had like hyper mutated while the pork was going bad and killed off a village. And pound for pound, botulinum H can kill you with the lowest dose possible.
See this I get though. I can see this being even a food spread, right? Some kind of lettuce spread.
I don't think it would be lettuce. I think it would have to be involving pork or something. But yes,
but something that's greatly consumed,
Right. That is why it lands on this list. Is not necessarily this exact super strain, or not exactly this precise toxin. But you're right. What if instead of there was a hoof and mouth outbreak decades ago when I was a kid, and it scared everybody. And then more recently, there was a salmonella outbreak in all chicken eggs shipping to like the Southwest.
Well, that's there's a pet food that kills a bunch of pets, and it just comes out from a big established company. It's not some Chinese generic. You know what I mean? It's it's a big Fortune 500 company with very safe scientists. It wouldn't take that much, right?
Yeah, and that's the fear is like the reason why it lands on the apocalypse list, which I think that's what we should call this. If something was similar to botulinum H and produced and was able to infect that many things in our supply chain, it could be extraordinarily disastrous. And it kind of all depends on what the timeline is for it. Botulinum H killed very quickly. What if it was that, but it had like a dormancy of about 10 days or a couple weeks or something? But yeah, if you, I'm joking about getting you on a watch list. You can watch YouTube videos about botulinum H. It's very fascinating. It's a fluke discovery in our history. A fun fact about it is scientists, the research scientists that like unlocked botulinum H, they actually withheld the genetic data about the toxin for quite a while because they're afraid it could be used to make the toxin before an antitoxin was developed. So like that's how dangerous and deadly it was, that they're just like, we can't even tell people how this stuff fits together in case somebody figures out how to make it. So yeah, fascinating stuff.
Botulinum H. Is it like cyanide or is it is it worse?
Oh, you mean like, what it does to you?
Yeah.
Shuts down your nervous system.
Okay.
Actually,
so like
how does, I'm typing this into Google, so I mean like if I ever got away from that watch list by getting married and changing my last name, I'm about to get back on it. Yeah. How does it affect humans? Okay, yeah, it does.
Paralysis,
It's attacks the body's nerves, cause difficulty breathing, muscle paralysis, and death. And it takes a microscopic amount of it.
That's the scary part, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the amount that it takes, you wouldn't even have to see it with the human eye. Like you could poison somebody with basically like a microscope amount or microscopic amount, and it would kill them.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
You know.
But it's so tightly controlled that it's like underground in the CDC, and they don't let people know the formula to make it. So like that makes me feel a little bit better. By the way, if I was going to be a Batman villain, or if I was going to write a believable Batman villain, it would be somebody who works for the CDC and was like, took all these viruses and weird things out of the vault and like went on a like the Joker, like started releasing them into Gotham. That would be.
Why do I
Yeah.
feel like I'm going to be in court someday going over this whole episode with you?
we need to delete it now.
Should we lawyer up,
Instead, I'm going to need you to start practicing believably telling people I was with you the whole night in question.
An alibi.
The last one I really want to like talk about and discuss its ramifications, the cosmic erasure of information. So we're going to have to do a little bit of history for this one. Have you heard that we are currently in what's called an information dark age?
No.
It feels like we are overloaded with information.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to say, I think we're on the pioneering, whatever the opposite of dark age is.
Yeah, it feels like we have more information than we could possibly use. I'm being bombarded with information nonstop every day by websites, advertisers, AI that wants me to read even more than I do every day. There's more books on Amazon that I could possibly read. They estimate that like thousands of hours of watchable material is added to YouTube every day, to the point where there's no one human who could ever watch everything being produced in a day. There's more content online being produced that you will never get to, like the amount of humans alive today. If everybody went to the internet right now, started reading, watching, and listening, there aren't enough people to absorb the amount of information we've put online and that we put online every day. So that's how much information we have. But the reason why historians are calling this a information dark age is because everything is digital. And digital won't last. Like there's no recording device currently existing that can save something digital forever. Every hard drive on Earth will slowly degrade. Like if you ever boot up an old hard drive and it says file corrupted, and if you're very clever, you can find a program online that'll let you open corrupted pictures and videos. And like they have these weird like pixel missing squiggly rainbowy effects. So all data gets corrupted eventually. Like there's no hard drive that is 100%, secure, that like it will save data for, even tens of years. This is from a website called Superuser. Hard drive data retention is approximately 70 years if kept in optimum temperatures. So even if we had, I know
that's a human lifetime. That's all.
That's the scary part is if you and if I took my most sensitive data and everything I need to know, put it on a hard drive and threw it in a desk, and I was like, I had an air conditioner, I had it, it was dark, temperature regulated, in a Mylar bag, everything is perfect. It's got about 70 years before it starts getting corrupt.
Isn't that weird? Isn't that kind of weird? The coincidence,
So as a humankind, when you think about this, when we invented publishing, we went ham and made all these books and filled libraries, and the Great Library of Alexandria was like used to take original copies from sailors and then give them back the copies that they would make. So they'd like keep the original and give them a copy so they could have a big library. Just imagine if you were like everybody who wrote in a book was like, well, this isn't going to exist in 70 years. We've built a system where everybody pours out their data online and pours out their heart and pours out everything they've ever known onto videos and live streams and blogs and podcasts like we do. And everyone just does this knowing that in about 70 years, it'll all get wiped out just by time, unless somebody is actively recopying them over and over and over again. You have to have somebody who cares enough to copy them to the next hard drive, to the next hard drive, to the next hard drive.
But it wouldn't work because everyone's doing more content than they're reading, right? So it's like
that's exactly my point. Yeah. So yeah, as much as we do with podcasts, you and I, Todd, we are going to be putting out books just for the fact of we need something in print so that I can hand that to my grandkids and be like, see, I wasn't a complete dummy.
Because there won't be a trail of it.
Yeah. And then you get into the apocalyptic level stuff, which is, what if we had a solar flare? Now, this is actually the plot of Blade Runner. If you watch Blade Runner 2049 and you watch other Blade Runners, that's the plot, is that a solar flare or a spark from a black hole, or just any of these like cosmic events that affect magnetism, could erase all information in the world or even in the universe and make reconstruction past a certain state just impossible. So like, what if all of our data right now was just gone? we would quite literally be back into the industrial age. Like, we wouldn't have the knowledge or processes or science or anything behind what we're doing. We wouldn't have an economy the way we look at it. We would be in the 1800s railroad era again, just overnight. And that is such an interesting one that I think I want to leave off on that one. I think I had written fentanyl on the bottom of this list, but that's not an apocalyptic event, so I'm not even going to include that. So I guess the question now is, when somebody's complaining about their day, and I want to be an unsympathetic jerk, I just say, have you thought about solar flares lately? And I should now ask, has this corrupted your thoughts day to day? Is this gonna make it harder for you to sleep?
Some more than others, yes. and I'm gonna say that how I protect myself until I started thinking of all these things, because you can think yourself thick, is I think ignorance is absolutely bliss.
I think ignorance is both bliss, and ignorance is also what lets you go on with more productive things in your day. I joke a lot, but I don't recommend people sit around and dwell on these all day. This is hopefully has just been a presentation of interesting fun facts about the way the world could end. So I don't want it to be.
Well,
yeah.
I think for your trade as a fiction writer too, you have apocalyptic. That's something that kind of stirs your imagination, and you're kind of a survivalist, right? So this
absolutely
this kind of puts into your personality and probably fuels you, right?
That is actually, if we want to get real, and I stop joking for 10 seconds about apocalypses, that is why I know them, is because the genre I mostly write in is apocalyptic fiction. And writers are in a competition, an arms race, to figure out what is the neatest apocalypse to write about, what is the coolest way to end humanity, so we can write a story in that universe. If you've seen the show Wool by Apple TV, that is like, what if just poisons were all over the atmosphere? And like, if you read Dies the Fire by S.M. Stirling, it's what if fast chain reactions in physics stop happening, like you couldn't use gunpowder or like road flares anymore. So yes, this is all in good fun. I actually don't lose sleep over these. But they're just very fascinating to me.
And I think there's something to be said too for something bad happening and having some urgency in our life to get our goals done, get our families started, right? To smoke them while we got them, I guess. To do another cliche, right?
I don't remember which online personality it was, but there became this joke when, like, I think it was like a guest on Joe Rogan was like, bro, you should listen, or you should be thinking about ancient Rome every day. And it was sort of like a manly thing. Like, you should, how often do you consider ancient Rome is what the meme became.
Yeah.
I want to start that. This is my memento mori, is like, everybody, how often do you think about one of these weird apocalypses? Like, how's that affected your productivity levels in a day?
I think Joe would genuinely be happy with the end of the universe. He doesn't see it.
Bring it.
See, I told you, right?
So my court date is coming up. I'm going to need you to be there.